I'm going to take a little bit different approach than Amit to this particular group meeting. I really want to make it as participatory as possible, vis-a-vis questions from the chat room or just talking. I think that's maybe a very productive way. You've seen presentations all day from very smart people, and my thinking is that the topic, as Amit was saying earlier, I sort of have a MAGA sort of tagline here. The notion of decentralized media is not something that necessarily needs to be explained, because we're all living it right now. This very unconference is a perfect example of a decentralized media experience. We're using video technology, which is a medium, to connect with one another in a global video conference that can go up to tens of thousands of people just at a click of a button, based upon the pricing tier you wish to commit to, vis-a-vis Zoom or any of these other platforms. So when you think of things, you're looking at it and saying, okay, well, this is the new norm. And we talk about distributed architectures and decentralized technology, and there are new protocols that are being emerged, like IPFS, and search engines to accompany them, like IPSC, that will allow you to find IPFS media assets. And what that is ultimately the notion of taking all of your assets and having them completely distributed on all devices everywhere in the world, and copied in a infinite amount, if you will, that makes it impossible for a centralized architecture to be able to take down a live linear stream or any kind of a VOD asset file. And today I'm going to really mostly focus on media as the conversation, predominantly as it pertains to video. So just a bit of a backup here for those that I haven't met before. There's a lot of really nice faces here. I see ULab China, Unit Room 5, George, Stuart, hello, Camille, Alexander, Joshua, and KK. So my name is Marc Scarpa, and I've been basically online since 1979. I was a phone phreaker when I was a young kid. I got into video games, and my mom gifted me a computer. My school I was very fortunate. My school had a computer as well. And I'm just going to give you the highlights of my digital life. At age 12, I had the NSA come to my house to I would say agents, if you will, were looking to find Mr. Scarpa, and they found me, vis-a-vis my mom, on my computer, plugging away. And this is because we played a prank, a bunch of friends of ours, on a member of Ronald Reagan's administration's inner circle. His son was an online bulletin board person. And so we, as a decentralized group of people online at that point, at age 12, all banded together information, assets, and abilities and skills to figure out how to send him basically a live cow brain that was sent from a medical lab to his front door, made out to him, and set up a new phone line in their home that we could call him directly on, which that part never ended up happening. We ultimately just, I suppose, called the main house line, and that's what prompted the NSA. Anyway, I'll get back to that story in a second. Years later, always had an interest with the internet early on, went to film school, studied media, really gravitated towards media, I guess, propaganda classes, if you will, always fascinated me across the board, and how media was being run in not only this country, but the world. looking at the major true suppliers of media. It's been decentralized in a lot of ways in terms of content acquisition for a long time. You look at CNN, Fox, all the big companies out there, NBC, ABC, CBS News, they have local stations, but vast majority of their content is coming from the Associated Press and from Reuters. This is why when you see a news story, a lot of the footage is exactly the same on every single network. So they have content coming in from tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of suppliers, and the media network can only get a certain amount. So already you have sort of this decentralization from a content acquisition standpoint, and that's still prevalent today. But that was at the birth of television as well. So that was what I focused on mostly in film school. Got out of school, started, working in the space of virtual reality, did some events with Mondo 2000 magazine, was the first guy to bring a public exhibition of virtual reality to New York City. And then had the opportunity to get involved with the launch of CNET Television, which is now owned by CBS. And also was the guy who produced the first large-scale online event in history, which was the Free Tibet Festivals in 1996. Now, back then, streaming, you were doing it off of a centralized architecture of video. You would, in essence, have the same 5 or 6 DEC Alpha servers in a broadcast operations center. Instead of a NOC, they call it a BOC. And that would go out to however many people were trying to log in through dial-up. Or if they were lucky enough to be at an internet cafe, they would get them there. Now, that event only had about 36,000 participants. We had the concert. We were streaming that live in video, by the way, as well as audio back in '96. And that was a pretty big accomplishment, not only for the technology, but in terms of the formats and how we put that together. We also used, it was the first time that Wi-Fi was ever used at a live concert before, or any concert before. We had a tent down on the main field. It was at the Golden Gate Park in San Francisco. And inside the tents were a bunch of computers where you could do sign-ups to sign up, for the cause. And inside the tents were monks, obviously, from the Milarepa group, who put that together with Adam Yauch, late Adam Yauch of the Beastie Boys. And so, those are all connected via Wi-Fi. You couldn't get a hard line out when there's 80,000 kids in the middle of the field moshing to Red Hot Chili Peppers who were performing at the show, or whomever was performing at the time. We had a lot of artists there. I suggest you look it up. It was a magical day. That was all done through ISDN lines, demarked to pay telephones. And we basically were very proud of the fact that we had a lot of the artists participate, but the fans at the venue themselves would go into this action tent, sign up, be with the monks, watch the show that was outside on a computer, and they acted as bloggers before there was blogging to the kids in the chat room worldwide as to what was going on. They were reporting and telling their stories. And then we were getting stories from other people in internet cafes from around the world in terms of what they were doing at these global watch parties. And that information was then fed to the stage where the artists would read off comments that they got in the chat room from users around the world. So here we had a very participatory event. Not everybody was in the same location. We were using new media, and it was a decentralized media experience, just like, again, what we're experiencing now. So continued with that for many years through my career. And in terms of doing these live broadcast events, in 1999, got to do the first town hall with President Clinton, who was, very progressive. And it was the first online town hall in presidential history. It's actually the only one in a presidential library. And going back to my 12 years old, this is just a funny story about our government. Everyone on my crew and myself, we had all get Secret Service clearance. The client was Excite at Home, if anybody remembers that merger. And I was the only one who wasn't cleared. And I had no idea why. And it was my company. And I was told by my client that I needed to go down to DC and meet with an agent down there to discuss it because they couldn't discuss it on the phone. And I went down there by train the very next day to Virginia, actually. And I walked into what was a normal looking office. Wouldn't know, it didn't say Secret Service out front. I forget what it was, actually. It was just a building. You went inside and told them who you were there to see, and they sent you up. And there was this young agent there and an old guy. And that old guy worked for the NSA. And he was the same guy who came to my house when I was 12 years old, and he had my file. And it was a very happy file. There wasn't much in it except for that one incident. And they just asked me a very basic question. Are you going to, do we have to be concerned about anything that you'll be doing as a live broadcast with the president? And I said, no. They said, okay, great. Well, nice to see you again. And that was it. And I went on my happy, merry way. And so that's background on me. And now what I've been doing is we've just launched, we're in the process of launching Decentric Media with some of our business partners, our Brock Pierce, Scott Walker, Patrick Sang out of London and Hong Kong. We've got Zachary Bryan and a host of folks. And what we're looking to do is create a 24-hour decentralized broadcast network, where in essence, we're having a channel that would go out via the web, iOS and Android, OTT, and digital television. So please take a look at decentric.media for some preliminary information, and you'll start to see some more info as we evolve. So with that said, I wanted to just open it up. We're about 15 minutes in and get into more of a Q&A. That's who I am. And I'd like to hear who you guys are and your thoughts on what decentralized media really means. But again, in the context of we're living it now, we're going to continue to live decentralized media, and it's just going to become more and more pervasive. Even in a linear broadcast context, that architecture is becoming more and more decentralized. And the implications of, an IPFS technology, as I mentioned earlier, is you've got media that can never be turned off or censored, or can it? So, I wanted to open up the floor to some thoughts. Anyone? Don't be shy.
I'm just going to pop in. I got in a little bit late to this. Can you just say one more time online where we can find the building site? Because this is very fascinating and I want to read more.
Which building?
Say that again?
Which building?
I think you said decentralized.media to see.
Oh, yes. The website is decentric.media. And you can also find us. We're starting to get some aggregation of stories that we like. So you'll find us on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and LinkedIn and so on. But you'll see a full-scale launch in the next couple of months.
So excited.
And if you were to watch a 24-hour broadcast network about our ecosystem, what would be some of the things you would want to see on that channel? It's a question to you, Robin.
That's a good question. Oh my God, I'm taking this in. Okay. Sorry to be spaced. I have it pulled up and saved. I feel like just the truth portrayed in so many different ways and from many different angles and artistic formats
Mm.
without some sort of I had an animation project and my background is in the field of choreography and going through the process of pitching and selling, it was like, no, you can get more creative and experimental once it's like it's safe, it's bought. But then it was like you have to follow these guidelines, and it was like every rule made me want to break the rules even more, and to have like the Bible books be set to like that there was no rules, and it was just that you had, sorry, I have puppies barking in the background. um I guess that would be a desire, is to not have to build your way by following a very bland, in my opinion, structure, and like check marks where like the soul is sort of gone. I'm gonna mute myself because the pups.
Well, those are all good points. I think that the one thing we have to remember in terms of the truth is that there's always a different perspective on what the truth is. So as I was saying earlier, you have media that you're watching right now, whether it be online or your phone or coming from the actual television, if anybody actually watches TV anymore. Um, those images that you're seeing coming from Reuters or Associated Press, that's an image. That could be, if, people say, oh, a picture can tell a picture is worth 1,000 words, and it is. A video is worth, 1,000,000,000 thoughts, because you're looking at the video and you're like, well, what is that? Now, the way that the media organizations, depending upon their agenda, their investors, their advertisers, their narrative, their theme, that's all a construct, and they're going to wrap a story around that same piece of video. So you'll see a video. I mean, Trump is the easiest example. CNN will do a story, run the quote of what Trump said and interpret it one way. Fox will run the exact same quote of the exact same video and run it a different way. But you're only seeing an opinion of what that man actually said. The only way to know is to watch the whole speech from beginning to end and understand the context on how he delivered it. And I'm obviously not I'm not advocating Donald Trump, but I'm using him as an example. The words are open to interpretation if you're only taking a piece of it. If you're watching the whole thing, then you have a better picture to formulate your own opinion. So live has a little bit more purity to it than just an edited clip or a influence clip of a media experience. So watching live media is truth in many ways. Like what we're seeing right now, we all see each other's faces. This is live. I'm talking to you as a regular person. We don't have any interpretation of this, but someone can certainly take what you just said and construe it in a completely different way. And that's what all media is. And it goes back to art. It goes back to cave paintings. Those were the express ideas of an individual who was telling his or her story about their experience or their imagination or them on ayahuasca. You just don't know. You weren't there. So everyone has their own reality. So there is no way to get truth. Now, there are facts. Facts are, again, scientifically proven, depending upon which science you adhere to. Eastern and Western sciences in the medical profession different. So right there, you have two sciences that compete with each other, and then you can have that open to interpretation. But there are basic universal facts in science that we have to adhere to. But beyond that, I don't see that there are many rules. So if you're having a rule issue, really what you're having is a communication issue and a format issue. You're putting your thoughts together in a format that someone else can understand, because that's how they process information, and that's how they're going to buy it or not buy it. So when I asked you what you wanted to see or consume, it's more like, what stories and narratives are you all interested in, as opposed to, the truth. Because I'm not going to give you the truth, because there is no truth. It's your opinion or your interpretation of reality and live that determines truth. But what stories do you want to see that really, encompass what we're about? We're about coverage of decentralized culture, finance, and technology. And that falls into other subcategories of artificial intelligence and robotics, and, solar punk, if you will, regenerative culture, social impact, cybersecurity, and of course, blockchain and digital currencies. So, that being the core of it. So there you go. That's what we'd like to be doing. Are we right or not? Does that make sense? Would you guys consume that content? Is that something you want to see? Who wants to make content for that platform?
So that's Lily, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Amit. I think you were going to say something. Please.
You were first. Women first.
Mm-hmm.
Amit was going to say something. I I heard that deep interactive games and also these VR wearable devices, eventually it's going to be a chip, right, planted in the back of your eyeball, are going to be the future, right, for technology and so on and so forth. So I wonder, like, so two things. One is about social interaction, right? How do I create the balance between diversity and efficiency, around me, kind of a social network around me, to allow my container around me healthy, right? To be healthy. That's one thing. And the other thing I think is also about awareness, right? Because if a person is not aware and is not connected with the source, right? You have no truth, right? This person is, or this crowd, is very subjected to all the manipulation and stuff. So I would love to see your service to really help with those two aspects, the kind of the self-presence and also the healthy container part of it.
Well, that's really great feedback, Lily. I appreciate that. And to your point, you're talking about basically having contact lenses that let you have an immersive experience on demand if you want, or AR or walking VR. These are all things that, the future has already happened. That was a great quote by William Gibson, who coined the term cyberspace, and it has. And the reality is that's not the future if you don't want it to be. The future is what you want it to be. And, social media, you can curate social media in a way, even platforms, that's what Facebook is designed for, to have a very custom message that comes to you in terms of the decentralized media that's out there is being curated there in a personalized way through your personal network, and you're being fed that information, and hopefully most of it is positive based upon the people that you're choosing to, or the things that you like and your interests. So I think it's there already. There's also the argument of all of that, and you're absolutely right, this notion of, because I'm cyber addicted, and there's a bunch of cyber addiction recovery centers that are emerging out there, just like for Narcotics Anonymous and Alcohol is Anonymous. It's right. There's one right here in Culver City in LA. It's called Cyber Yeah, Cyber Recovery Center. That's exactly what it's called, .com. Buy stock in that company. But the point is that, you know, you're right. As people are more immersed in their phone and AR and immersive games and so on, they're getting detached from a human presence. And I think that what I talk to people about in terms of human presence, there's kind of two phases to that, right? We have five senses for a reason. And when you're with someone very intimately in a relationship, you pretty much explore all five with them, right? And then you have other relations with people right now, and we're exploring really two of these five senses, sight and sound. And inside a virtual world, you know, that's still sight and sound, but there's no cognitive relation there because you may be appearing as a completely different character. So I don't have a sense of who you are in relation to how I have my own sense of self. So, you know, human contact is just irreplaceable, and it's something that will always have to be with us in order for us, in my own personal beliefs, to have your own awareness and presence in life. And without that, you know, you might just get lost. If you're completely self-isolated from people and everything, how can you have a sense of self when you have no sense of others? So that's my thinking on that. Amit?
Well, my thinking is that Robin got her younger sister to join us, which is very cool.
That is good. I see that there. Hello.
Love it. You guys are so, this is the coolest thing, by the way.
Hello. Welcome to our group conversation here.
Thank you. I love
Amit,
it.
what were you going to say?
Robin's reaction when Lily talked about having that chip implanted here was classic. Her expression, like, shock. Marc, in terms of the decentralized media network, built decentralized and focusing on decentralized thematic, right? And that's kind of what you're saying in terms of the programming is one thing. And but tying it back to, I think, what Robin originally talked about in the context of the truth, you have a unique opportunity, right, to kind of build in a little bit of the provenance of content. So it's not just how I interpret that video of Trump saying what he's saying, but in a world where AI is starting to be able to alter video and content as much as it can, you know, we've talked about the deep fakes and the deep fake videos. Doesn't a decentralized network allow for, in that sense, the fidelity of content and its veracity and its provenance to at least be in place? Then of course you make what you want with it. After all, we're in an opinion society, right? But that's a unique opportunity.
I think that what our objective is to create a forum for very smart people to have a, you know, curated opinion and to be their own subject matter experts of what they're about, and getting a coalition of like-minded people together to be involved in this new breed, if you will, of network as really a coalition, as a members organization, as a participatory group, as opposed to us telling you what's going on. It's listening as well as reporting, and giving you, using those type of tools. And I think my time is up, but using those tools that you've just mentioned to do real-time fact checking on things. Like, you can do that now in live video. There are technologies in place, albeit nascent, that could fact check things that I'm saying. So it's using audio recognition. I say that, you know, George Washington was the 10th president of the United States, not the first. And that would come back and say, bing, no, that's not true. Host is talking to somebody that's made that claim. hey, I can talk to the host and tell them that, or the fact comes up that that fact is inaccurate in real time, and the host can now call them on that. So that is a use of the technology that you will begin to see. We'd like to certainly implement that. I'm also a big fan of deep fakes, and but to use them in a way that's comical and funny and obvious, not for trickery. And so, you know, we're hopeful that you guys will enjoy what we make together with you. And I appreciate all your comments and feedbacks. I'm not sure who's taking over from here, but I think my time is up, unfortunately. Would love to talk more. Marc at decentric.media.com. Marc at decentric.media if anybody would like to email me. Thank you.